Wait till you see what we've got under here.
By the late 1980s, the 911 had reached a turning point. The new G50 gearbox brought refinement and strength, transforming the driving experience without losing the raw soul of the flat six. And among those cars, the Targa stood apart with its open-air freedom and unmistakable silhouette. It embodied the perfect balance between everyday usability and pure driving emotion. This 1988 911 G50 Targa has now received a new lease of life. Brakes refurbished, its underside dry ice blasted, every detail has been restored. From the interior to the fresh martini stripes down its flanks, a careful preservation of heritage instead of reinvention. But for its owner, it's more than history, it's memory. The first Porsche he ever bought almost 3 decades ago, reborn in spirit through this car. Because sometimes, a car isn't just about where it came from, it's about where it takes you back to.
The owner of this Porsche brought it over to us with the vision of recreating his original 911 back in the 1990s. This particular one not only needed a good clean-up to get it to the condition of his original one, but also a bit of a restoration. Starting with the brakes.
The first task was to get the calipers off the car so they could be sent off and refurbished. This started with us removing the sliding pins that hold the brake pads in place, and once the pads were out, the copper brake line that supplies the brake with fluid could also be slackened off. However, that didn't quite go to plan. These brake lines likely haven't been removed at all in the car's lifetime, which is why the fittings that the copper pipes are plumbed into have seized, causing this particular brake line to snap.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Right, it's only a small section.
The last thing to do before the caliper could be taken off was to undo the two 90mm bolts that hold it onto the carrier. And then we just needed to repeat the process another 3 times. And just to keep everything together, we put the pins and retaining clip back into the caliper.
So the next morning, we dropped the brakes off at BCS in Long Eaton. The calipers needed to undergo a full rebuild, which started with disassembling them, acid dipping, shot blasting, and then prepping for paint. They were then high temperature primed and painted before being rebuilt using all new parts, including new pistons. We'll come back to these later in the video though. For now, it's time to remove the Targa roof bar. To begin removing this, first we had to pry off the weather seals. When you're dealing with rubber of this age, it's really important to handle it with care, as it's normally quite perished. Once they were off, it revealed a bunch of Phillips head screws which were holding the metal skin in place. There were about 10 screws in total, but even after removing those, there was 4 more bolts hidden deep inside the arches. The passenger side was pretty straightforward, but on the driver's side, we needed to drop the fuel filter. So after clipping the cable tie, which wasn't really doing anything, we then undid the 10mm bolt that clamped the filter housing into place, before lowering the fuel filter down out of the way so we could access the 2 bolts, which was the last things holding it in place. These were the 10mm nuts, and they looked like they hadn't seen the light of day in a while, so out came the impact gun. And just like that, 1 Targa bar outer skin removed.
The next thing we needed to do was to fit the new boot lid. This already had a spoiler attached to it, but after swapping it over earlier that day, we realised the boot itself was damaged, which meant we'd need to remove the spoiler and fit it to the original boot lid. So first, off came the spoiler. I'd need to measure up for drilling holes in the old boot lid, so I decided to use the grill to make a template. With that off, I cleaned off all the old dirt from underneath before any masking tape could be stuck to it. And then loosely fitted the grill and laid masking tape down over the top. The idea with this is so that the tape doesn't sink down into the hole where the grill was, so we get an accurate template. Then it was just a case of trimming up the edges and marking the holes that needed to be drilled. And then doing the whole process in reverse. One last thing with the old boot lid was to remove the Carrera badge. We'll be putting this back on later, but it needs to go closer to the bottom edge. Now we could drop the grill back into position and stick the edges of the tape down. And there you have it, a perfectly positioned template. Now the drilling could begin. We started with a smaller size to create a pilot hole and then worked our way up. Once every hole had been drilled out to its finished size, we could remove the template to see the finished results. Then it's back on with the boot lid, and last but not least, the spoiler. One other thing that I did once the spoiler was on was touch up the insides of the newly drilled holes to stop rust forming around the edges. And one last thing, we needed a hole for the rear window wiper to poke through.
So while all this was going on, we had our resident dent man AD from Dents First come out to straighten up the panels. The next morning, Gaz refitted all the wheels, minus the brakes, and rolled the car round to our friends at Arctic Dry Ice so the underside cleaning could commence. For anyone unsure about what dry ice blasting is, our Christmas episode last year showed the lads from Arctic Dry Ice cleaning the engine bay on our barn-find Maserati. So once again, it was off of the wheels. On a newer car, dirt and grime could easily be blasted off with a pressure washer and a bit of elbow grease. But on an older and more delicate car, dry ice blasting is way more effective while being less aggressive due to the lack of water and chemicals used. So after loading up the ice, Andy could get to work, methodically working his way around every inch of the underside. And after everything had been blasted, it was then sealed with a clear underbody coating to protect it from future corrosion. The results really do speak for themselves.
Just over a week later, we had the calipers back from BCS, and oh wow, they look fresh. The factory finish of these calipers is usually a bare aluminium, which over time tarnishes and eventually starts to corrode. However, we, along with the customer, decided to go with gloss black. A subtle but stylish touch, if we do say so ourselves. So let's get them refitted. And before we could finish the brakes and get them bled, we needed to address that snap brake line. So we called on our friend Craig from CS Automotive to lend us a small bit of copper brake line and all the tools we'd need to do the job. The first thing I did was to flare the very end of the pipe before using a pipe cutter to trim off a small bit that we could mould to shape. Then it was just a case of forming it to the shape of the original pipe and putting a flare on the opposite end. And here's the finished result. After that, it was time to start bleeding the brakes. To do this, we used a brake bleeding tool which screws onto the reservoir cap and allows you to pressurise the whole system by pumping it up. Then we attached a catch tank to the calipers, and starting with the furthest corner away from the reservoir, we opened up the bleed nipples. And once there were no more air bubbles coming through the pipe, the brakes were good to go. So, Paul has asked us to source a new splitter for the Porsche, as the old one doesn't have the little rectangular cutouts on the bottom for the fog lights and the rubber lip that he supplied us. So, we managed to find one on eBay. It's new old stock. We've been to collect it. Now it's time to get it fitted.
The first step was to remove the bolts located under the arches. And then pry off the rubber trim, revealing the main bolts that held the bumper in place. These bumpers probably haven't been off in a long time, so we sprayed some WD-40 on them just to make it easy to remove.
Well, it's making me want to pee, that.
Then we drained the screen wash from the headlight washers. And once we finally removed the bumper and then the splitter, we could finally test fit the new splitter before getting it painted. But then we ran into a problem.
Basically, this splitter should be like an extra inch longer to go onto, so it kind of sits in line with the bumper and the rest of the arch, but for some strange reason it's not right.
There must be, again, there's 1,000,001 different shapes and sizes of the models.
Also, that one hasn't got,
Oh, is that?
yeah,
That, then.
that'll be for the arches on the turbo. Yeah, the little lips or whatever.
We need to start fabricating, don't we? Yeah, Pepper, you tell them. You tell them. Yeah. I mean, it looks a lot better.
So after a quick chat with Craig from CS Automotive, we decided to modify the splitter. Would need to lengthen it by an extra 38mm on each side. So whilst I was chopping up the new splitter, Gaz got to drilling out the old one to remove brackets we'd need. And the next day, Craig came round with the newly lengthened splitter. Hopefully my measurements were right. Then we just needed to tidy up the welds, apply some body filler, and then it's off to the body shop to be painted.
Another job on the gradually shrinking list is to restore and repaint the Targa roof bar skin. So let's get cracking. We started by removing these two little nuts that hold the Targa badges on. I wanted to try a little bit of fallout remover on these rusty areas. It's not actually rust, more just rust staining. It did help to break some of it down, but not as effectively as I'd hoped. So in the end, we got the big dogs out. Once the majority of it was cleaned off, I put a little bit of Curist on just to help prevent it coming back. For anyone not sure what this does, it chemically reacts with the rust, turning it into a stable, paintable surface. And once that had a couple of hours to dry, I got to work prepping the rest of the skin for paint. It was actually in quite rough shape, so I started with 120 grit sandpaper just to give it a completely fresh start. I then built up coats of high build primer, sanding in between each coat. So next I sanded with 240 grit, 400, and then finally 800. The last sand was done with water. Then came the fun part, putting the black down. To end it off, I give it 3 coats of satin black, followed by 2 coats of satin clear coat, just to help protect the finish. The badges were also repainted, and once everything was dry, we could start to reassemble it. Seeing as the original nuts were quite damaged, I opted to replace them with these push nuts. And before it could go back on, I wanted to give all the old dirt and grime from underneath a good clean out. And then finally, it could be refitted.
Oh, hello, camera. You're recording. Hello there. Nice to meet you.
Next on the list was to get that battery changed. We swapped it out for a new Varta battery, and then after that we could start the car and get it into position for washing. It wasn't extremely dirty, more just dusty from being dry ice blasted and sitting around. The paintwork was treated to a 2-stage enhancement. White's always a tricky colour to bring out the gloss, but when it's done right, it really looks the part. So, you can probably see there is a tiny bit of overspray. Well, there's more than a tiny bit, but there's a bit of overspray left just around there. If we move further up, there's a lot here. And obviously it gets worse even further along where I've not touched. So, we're going to have to go with a different method. Probably try some thinners to remove it, but need to be careful I don't melt the plastic. Not wanting to risk melting the plastic, I decided to wet sand the overspray off with some 1500 grit sandpaper. And that was followed up with a quick polish to bring back the clarity. And while I finished off the polishing, Aaron got to work on retrimming that vinyl roof.
Hiya, gang. Right, so we have the Targa top for the 911, which is behind the camera. Now, in the camera, it probably looks okay, but it is a little bit worn, and then it's got a hole just here, and I'll bring the camera in and show you in a second, but it's got a hole in the top. So, we need to repair that. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't really do any smart repairs because that is right on a fold. So the leather just wouldn't take it. It'll end up ripping again. So we need to replace them. So we have a brand new replacement piece, which is going to go something like that. Obviously, we're not going to go right over the top of it. We need to take it apart. So first, I need to undo all the leather. Now it's stuck and screwed in. So we need to take the side trims off, both sides. We need to fold this in, as you can see. Don't know if you can see it, but there is screws along there, holding that in. Same under here, and then it's glued. So we need to peel it all back, get the new one on, stick it all in place, screw it on, and I think we should be good. Sounds easier than it probably is, but wish me luck. I've taken the side rubbers off and this side mount, which has revealed some tiny grub screws. Now I've just tried to take one out. It's a little bit seized and starting to round off. So what I've done is just sprayed a little bit of WD-40 on them. I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes and hopefully we can get them out. Unfortunately, that didn't work. So we had to resort to drilling out the screws. However, that was proven to be a bit of an issue as well. They're all blunt, or they've blunted. That's how much progress I've made. I've tried to do a little bit on all of them, but then it gets to a point where it's just not doing anything. That one I just snapped was one of the Bosch ones. But the only way of they're actually biting is if I actually put a bit of force into it. So after another unsuccessful round of drilling and multiple blunted drill bits, Gaz decided to pull out his favourite tool. And once the screw heads had been ground off, the trim that was holding the edges down could be removed. Then it was a case of removing a few more screws from the frame, and the material could be separated from the roof. Then we cleaned the individual parts to remove any glue residue on them, and then got to work gluing the new material down.
So now that our modified splitter was back from the body shop, it was time to get it fitted. Then the new fog lights could go in, along with the rubber lip. Once that was done, there was just a few more touches. It really does feel like we're on the home straight now. Something that we really had to do was to repaint the black part of the spoiler. It was a relatively simple job, carefully using masking tape to mask up the original edge, before using some grey Scotch pad to key the surface prior to painting. And lastly, but possibly most importantly, we dust sheeted the car to stop any overspray getting on it. And then one final wipe down to remove any grease or silicone, and now it's time to get spraying. We gave it 3 coats, allowing 10 minutes between each, and even though the car was covered, we used a vacuum just to keep the dust down. After about 30 minutes, we could unsheet the car and pick off that masking tape.
Next job on the list was to tackle those martini stripes.
So what we've got to do, we've got to take the vinyls off the screen onto here, as you can see.
Then what you do, you take these and you just put them on the car. So you take that, you take these, put them on the car.
Cool. Okay. Once those had been stuck on, I got to work ceramic coating the car before getting started on the interior. Seeing as the carpets are removable, it made more sense to also remove the seats. This made it so much easier to vacuum everything else while they were out.
Hiya gang. So, it's currently 8:30 in the evening. Gaz has gone home. I'm staying late just to get the 911 finished, so it's ready for collection over the weekend. The last job is that we need to put some LEDs, which are, pause, we have some LEDs which Paul has provided because he wants to update the instrument cluster. Now, I've already removed, as you can see, these two here, so they're ready to pop out. And they are very, very tight. Now, on yours, they might not be. I suppose it depends if they've ever been removed. So, oh, let's have a look. So, can you see there's this rubber kind of ring, and then you've got this metal ring, which is the actual clock. So, if I pull this out, as you can see, that's the rubber gasket that holds it in, and it is extremely tight, especially if they've never been out. Now, I'm assuming these have probably never been out, hence why they were so tight. So, the best trick to do this is you will need either a really, really strong pair of hands. Now, you'd probably have to be like the Hulk to remove these. As you can see, they're very tight. So, yeah, my hands are no good here. Plus, if you had Hulk hands, you're probably going to smash the glass. So, you want one of these. What you want to do is carefully put this between the metal and the rubber, not the leather and the rubber. Because what will happen is you'll just flex the rubber and you'll probably damage the leather behind it. So, yeah, it's a case of getting this prise tool in there. Now, what you want to do ideally is get a bit of pressure under there and twist, while obviously I can't do this with two hands. I'm holding the phone in one. You want to be grabbing one end and then prising the other, and just slowly prise it. Don't try and be a hero and pull it all out from one place. You don't want to damage anything. So a bit of pressure on that corner, a bit with your hand here, and just work your way round. You might want your steering lock off just to make things easier, more accessible. But then eventually, once you do pop these out, as you can see here, now I was struggling to find anything as to how to remove this particular cable, because as I pull, as you can see, it's spring loaded, and I was like, oh, I'm going to end up breaking something here. So they are the actual bulbs which we need to replace. So this is for anyone that's ever looking to do this upgrade. So again, if I pull on that, you can see it's spring loaded and it's just not coming out. Can you see it? Yeah, it's just not coming out. So anyway, that isn't meant to come out, which I've finally realized. So what you have to do is you have to grab it from the base. So this one's already half removed, as you can see. So if you pull it from the base and pull it from there, and there you go, that comes out. So obviously I'll replace that bulb and I'll have to repeat the same here. So again, what we're going to do is pull from that base there rather than here. But yeah, let's show you what it looks like when it's done. So with the last big job done, it was time for the finishing touches. So, job's complete. So just to reiterate for the amount of stuff we've done. So, brakes, refurbished by our friends at Brake Caliper Specialist. They've been fully stripped down, new pistons, seals, etc, and we've put them back on. We've had the full underside dry ice blasted by our friends at Arctic Dry Ice. So they've dry iced the full underside, arches, engine bay, and sealed everything so it's now protected for the future. We've retrimmed the roof, we've got some new material, so it all looks nice and new again. The interior, gave that a thorough once over. We've customised the dashboard with the instrument cluster, lights, etc. We've then, of course, put the whale tail on and the turbo splitter, which, as you saw, needed a bit of modifying, but it completely changed the look of the car. We've then also fitted some custom Martini stripes, which just look absolutely insane, completely just finished the car off in my opinion. And then of course, our usual, we've corrected the paintwork's coated, the glass is coated, the wheels are coated, everything's protected. So now the customer can go out, enjoy the car, and live life like he was 21 again. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. God bless.
So after the owner came to see the car and take it for a quick spin, we had our friend Ethan from Stealth Movements come over to collect it and transport it to its new home. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.